My broadcasting teacher always said if you can't talk about anything, you can talk about the weather, and we sure as hell are having weather. Just a few days ago, I was complaining about how cold and foggy it was. I was like, it's cold, it's foggy, it's August, I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Now, 3 days later, we're in a record heat wave. The governor has declared a state of emergency, and stepping outside is like stepping into a sauna. It's not just hot, it's muggy. It's 80% humidity, which is just ridiculous. It has nothing to do with what I'm about to talk about. Hello and welcome to RPG A Day 2020, day 19, where I do my own little RPG A Day trivia stuff. We discussed the first pre-published adventure ever. We discussed the very first adventure path ever. And now let us delve deeply into something else. Something I said we'd talk about yesterday, which is the mystery of the Drow elves. Now, I'm not talking about the 5th edition Drow elves because those are watered down Drow elves. I'm not even talking about the 4th edition Drow elves. I'm not talking about player character Drow elves. Because player character Drow elves all owe their origins to Drizt. Drizt single-handedly changed the Ranger class. I'm talking about the original OG Drow elves, which, as we discussed yesterday, were originally supposed to be a one-off. They were never supposed to be the huge, major bad guys they became. At least that's not what Gygax wanted. But TSR and the people in charge of TSR at the time wanted a big bad guy that they could hook their financial wagon to, and they changed things. And why did they choose the Drow? Because they fucking look like porn stars, and they're a sadomasochist dream. They're everything elves should be, but they're evil elves. They live underground, but they have pitch black skin. Why do they have pitch black skin when nothing that lives underground has pitch black skin? If you will look at any nature documentary or documentary about creatures that live in the deep, deep water, they are usually pale-skinned or albino, often blind, or if they do use light, they're bioluminescent. But one thing is pretty much universal. Nothing down there is dark-skinned. They are white-skinned. Why are they white-skinned? Because they're not exposed to sunlight. But the Drow were black-skinned. Why were they black-skinned? Because they were exposed to strange underdark radiation, and they ate weird mushrooms, and they took part in strange demonic rituals. They had pale white skin and emerald eyes, and they were just your 80s fanboy dream. They appealed to everybody. They looked like porn stars, and they dressed like sadomasochists. They were a female-based society of sex cannibals that worshiped this weird spider god. Made no sense on paper, but they were just so popular. Possibly because of the way the females were drawn. I mean, just those huge porn star boobs. They were usually naked or barely wore anything. They were like, oh my god, look at her, she's so hot. So the original Drows were just these chaotic nightmare of just what is the every worst thing we can possibly imagine. Let's squish it all together in one race and see what we can get away with. But then this guy named R.A. Salvatore came along, and he was like, oh, you want me to write some book about Drow to make them, sell more and more approachable? So he wrote Drizt. He created the entire culture of the Drow. He created the Underdark, and he created Mesobaranzan, the Drow city, and he wrote about this emotionally torn Drow elf who saw the errors of his way and wanted to break free from the endless cycle of evil and corruption that was the Underdark and become something better. And along the way, he somehow manages to make friends with this incredibly powerful black leopard in the Underdark. But then, oh no, it's not a black leopard. It's a figurine of wondrous power that becomes a black leopard. It's a female black leopard named Guinevere. So he slowly works his way towards the surface world because he wants to see more. He wants to see better. He wants to be different. He wants to fight against the evil of his mother and his family and the corruption of the Drow and save the surface world from the Drow raids and be better than the evil he's seeing. But how can he do that if he's constantly exposed to the evil down here? He needs to go out there. So by the end of the first Icewind Dale books, we are introduced to the role model for what would become the Drow from this point on. And in addition to that, we were introduced to the role model of what would become the Ranger class from this point on. Because Rangers before then and Rangers now, completely different. Rangers before Drizt were sort of modeled after Aragorn or actual Special Forces Rangers. They were one riot, one ranger, one guy who could live in the wilderness. They were expert with bows. They had, favorite enemies that were usually giants. They fought against the things that, were the threats to the wilderness. They're basically Aragorn, or what an age ranger and the men of the north, the Dunedain, were supposed to be. Then we meet Drizt, who was obviously a ranger because he's got an animal companion. He tracks, he has a few spells, and he wields a scimitar. And eventually he ends up dual wielding 2 scimitars, but not just any 2 scimitars, 2 magic scimitars, one of which ends up being an artifact scimitar. So he's dual wielding 2 scimitars. He's a Drow elf, dual wielding ranger with a pet cat. He becomes the torchbearer for all other Rangers. Due to the fact that then when the next edition comes out, Rangers have gone from Dunedain men of the North to guys who wield 2 weapons and, stuff. Worse, the Drow that we knew, these chaotic, crazy, evil sex cannibals, had become these surface Drow. Like every 5 minutes, you were meeting somebody else who was playing a surface Drow. Why? Oh, I saw, and they were emotionally torn. They were emo. The male Drow elves, not that anybody really played a male Drow elf, were all, thin but muscular, handsome, conflicted. Oh, they were just every bad boy, conflicted hero that you wanted. They appealed to girls because, it's not the typical thing. They appeal to boys because, he's the hero I want to be, but he's just effeminate enough that I don't feel threatened by him. They appealed to the LGBTQT because, oh my God, I mean, if anything is a poster child for, androgynous, it's Drizt and the Drow that came after Drizt. And of course, for the straight heterosexual boys who are just discovering their sexuality, those pictures of the Drow elf female on the cover of all the modules in the books with the boom, blang, blang, I was like, I feel strange. But Drizt opened the door for player character Drows, opened the door that this chaotic, evil, crazy race of insane sex cannibals could be surface-dwelling, emotionally torn, emo, quasi S&M bad boys who are really good, or bad girls who dress like porn stars, but they're on the surface and they really just want to do good things. They even made a good Drow elf god for the surface Drow to start worshiping. Elistri, our maiden of the stars, Loth's sister. So, and then by the time we got to today, Drow are now dressing like normal people. They're just been watered down. Sure, they're still evil Drow, but what's going on with them? Are they even a thing? I don't know. We don't really see them anymore. They haven't really shown up as a threat in a long time. They're due. They're frickin' due. I sure hope evil Drow show up in Rime of the Frost Maiden because they really haven't done anything in 5th yet. But we have plenty of good surface Drow going around being, I'm so torn. I'm so emotionally conflicted. I want to do good, but I was raised evil. I've got my 2 scimitars and I'm just wearing a frilly white shirt and tight leather pants and I look like a male model and I'm followed around by this Drow female who for some reason used to be looking like a porn star, but now just kind of looks like a girl with dark skin. And if you want to tell me Drow haven't had any other influence. All you have to do is look at the Night Elves or the Moon Elves or every other role-playing video game, whatever, that has dark-skinned surface elves who don't look like Legolas, but instead look like these dark-skinned elves. And a lot of them, especially look at the ones in World of Warcraft, look at, Sylvanas, they get badang-gadang-gadang and just like, yeah. So, Drow. There we go. That is a brief history of the strangeness that were Drow. They went from a one-off, they weren't supposed to be anything, to the cornerstone that TSR / Wizards of the Coast hooked their financial bandwagon and made them a ton of money and made R.A. Solitaire an industry and created this iconic race of both just evil, crazy Drow and good surface tool scimitar ranger wielding emotionally conflicted emo porn Drows. And then now we have the current Drow who are just kind of like, yeah, we're dark elves, but whatever. We dress like normal people now, and we just do adventurer stuff. Yeah, whatever. Most people want to play tieflings now because we've sort of been watered down. Yay, us. But hopefully with Rime of the Frost Maiden coming out, since it takes place in Icewind Dale, where Drizt got his start, you will see the return of the chaotic, evil, insane sex cannibals that were the original Drow. Talk to you later. God damn, it's hot.